All right, let's dive right into this explainer detailing India's Plastic Waste Management Amendment rules for 2024. Today, we're focusing precisely on what your business needs to do to stay compliant, and we are putting a massive spotlight on the brand new reporting duties landing squarely on the shoulders of plastic manufacturers.
So, I really want you to ask yourself, is your business truly ready for India's new plastic rules? Because the reality of this 2024 amendment is that whether you're running a sprawling manufacturing plant or a niche importing operation, you are facing a tectonic regulatory shift. The days of casual compliance? Yeah, those are completely over. The central government has tightened the net, and understanding these new obligations isn't just about being eco-friendly anymore, it's absolutely crucial for keeping your factory doors open.
Here's our compliance roadmap for today. We'll cover 1. The 2024 amendment explained, 2. Defining the key players, 3. The new mandatory reporting duties, 4. Meeting your EPR targets, and 5. Local bodies and compliance. Let's get right into it.
Section 1, the 2024 Amendment Explained.
So, published in the Gazette of India on March 14, 2024, the central government systematically rolled out these new rules with one overarching goal. They want to aggressively track the plastic life cycle. Basically, they want total visibility from the absolute origin point of raw material creation all the way down to its end-of-life disposal. It's a complete cradle-to-grave, track-and-trace mentality applied to the entire national plastic supply chain.
Section 2, defining the key players. Okay, let's start with the manufacturer. Under the new rules, this is the absolute origin point, right? The person engaged in the production of plastic raw materials. And here is a critical update you need to know. This now strictly includes producers of compostable and biodegradable plastics. Actually, let me emphasize that. You aren't exempt just because your plastic breaks down. If you make the raw resin or pellets, this is you.
Next up, the importer. This definition casts a really wide net. It means anyone bringing in anything from fully packaged commodities and commercial carry bags to the raw materials themselves, like resin, pellets, or even intermediate films and preforms. Basically, if it crosses the border for commercial use, you are now squarely under the regulatory microscope right alongside the domestic manufacturers.
Finally, we have the seller. These are the critical distributors in the supply chain, the folks selling those plastic raw materials or intermediate materials. And as we're about to see, sellers now face incredibly strict rules regarding exactly who they are legally allowed to sell their stock to.
Section 3. New mandatory reporting duties. Now, if you take away anything from this explainer, let it be this massive operational change in Rule 4. It's a real game changer. Under the old system, the flow of raw materials was, well, less rigidly monitored. But now, manufacturers and importers can only sell raw plastic materials to producers or sellers who are officially registered under these rules. You can no longer sell to unregistered entities, and you absolutely, unequivocally cannot sell to anyone manufacturing prohibited single-use plastic items. Your invoices must explicitly state the registration number of the buyer. The burden of policing the supply chain is now squarely on the manufacturer. To enforce all this, the government has unleashed a highly specific paper trail. Form 3 is your golden ticket if you're a raw material manufacturer or importer. That is your official registration. But the real beast? That's Form 7. This is a brand new, mandatory quarterly and annual report specifically for raw material suppliers. You have to document exactly who bought your plastic, their category, their GST number, and the exact tonnage supplied. It's honestly surprising just how granular this reporting has gotten. The whole shebang has to be tracked.
You're going to want to mark your calendars because this is the annual flow of these deadlines. Waste processors have until April 30th for their annual report. But for plastic raw material manufacturers, you've got to submit that Form 7 by the last day of the month following every single quarter. Then, your comprehensive annual report is due by June 30th. Miss these, and you're facing severe operational bottlenecks and hefty penalties. For sure.
And I really need to emphasize this for the innovators out there. Even eco-friendly plastic manufacturers have strict new duties. Before you market or sell compostable or biodegradable carry bags, you have to obtain a specific certificate from the Central Pollution Control Board. Furthermore, every single manufacturer must now process and report all pre-consumer plastic waste. We're talking about the rejects and discarded material generated right there on your factory floor during the manufacturing stage itself.
Section 4. Meeting your EPR targets.
So let's talk about EPR, or Extended Producer Responsibility. We can define this simply as the fundamental rule of modern waste management.
If you introduce plastic into the market, you don't get to just wash your hands of it once it's sold. No way. You are legally and financially responsible for its end-of-life collection, recycling, and safe disposal. You make it, you manage it.
You know those little triangles on the bottom of your water bottle or takeout container? Well, the abstract categories of plastic packaging mentioned in the legal text actually tie directly to those standard recycling identification codes, PET, HDPVC, and so on. The government has categorized all plastic packaging, and your specific EPR targets are based entirely on which of these categories you are pumping into the market.
To put this into perspective, these targets follow a steep ascending trajectory over the next 4 years. Notice how for Category 1 plastics, you are required to recycle 50% of your EPR target this year, but that scales rapidly to 80% by 2027. The compliance obligations increase every single year, and they are completely, non-negotiably mandatory.
But here's a fascinating caveat that brings us right back to our focus on raw material manufacturers. If a producer is classified as a micro or small enterprise, their collection target is actually absorbed by the raw material manufacturer or importer who supplied them. That's right, the raw material manufacturer must authenticate these sales on the centralized portal and take on that collection burden. However, the mandate to actually use recycled plastic content in new products, that remains the duty of the local micro or small producer. It is a highly intertwined system.
Section 5. Local bodies and compliance.
The 2024 rules also empower and obligate urban local bodies and panchayats at the district level, and they have their own strict timeline to follow. By June 30th every year, they must systematically assess the plastic waste generated in their area. And yes, that includes what's just sitting in legacy dump sites. They have to assess their local recycling infrastructure, actively police and prevent the sale of banned single-use plastics, and submit massive annual reports to the state pollution control boards.
To make this whole ecosystem actually work, the government is facilitating an EPR certificate trading system on a centralized electronic portal. Think of it kind of like a carbon credit market, but for plastic recycling. And to ensure a fair and functioning compliance market, the Central Pollution Control Board will strictly bound the exchange prices. They're capping them between 30% and 100% of the environmental compensation penalty you'd pay for failing your targets.
So we end with the ultimate question. Will these incredibly strict new reporting duties, especially those falling so heavily on manufacturers, and these aggressively ascending recycling targets finally close the loop on India's plastic waste crisis? The roadmap is drawn, the penalties are set, and the paperwork is certainly mounting. It's going to be a massive operational shift for businesses, and I, for one, am fascinated to track its real-world impact over the coming years. What do you think? Will it be enough? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and make sure your business is ready.